All right, we are here live with Medieval Babes. Catherine Blake, thank you so much for joining. And we also have...
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yes, of course. We also have Michael York and Charlie Cawood.
Hello.
And Charlie and Mike are two of the primary multi-instrumentalists on the album. And this is a collection of songs arranged by Catherine and performed by the group Medieval Babes, who we have featured on the site on more than one occasion. So, Catherine, this is such a fantastic album.
Thank you.
I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for making it and arranging it. And I'd love if you could just kind of set the tone of what the album is and what people are going to hear while they're with us.
Well, the text that I've used is Catholic prayer, primarily from prayers of the Rosary. And there's a couple of other ones that aren't from that actual kind of group of prayers. But overall, it's just very, very traditional Catholic prayer. But I've set it to plain song. So that means it's all in unison. Whereas normally I'd write quite a lot of harmonies with Medieval Babes, but I gave myself a sort of a discipline of just sticking to the plain song. Which is probably why it got finished so quickly, unlike the Nursery album that took 4.5 years. But it's not what you'd call traditional plain song, in that it's got a very sort of psychedelic backdrop provided by Charlie and Mike. A lot of it was done in lockdown. I lived in lockdown and lived in Glastonbury for 6 months, and that was when most of the work was done on the album, because obviously there wasn't much else to do. So I found it to be a very creative period. Charlie came down and for a couple of days, and we did some recording with him, and Mike was generally experimenting with different sort of field recordings, like for instance this stuff from the Chalice Well, which is a sacred well in Glastonbury, and recordings of bird song in the back garden. So it's very much the sound of Glastonbury and the sound of those sort of wilderness months and spent there.
Well, for me, it is a very powerful and beautiful album. I am a Catholic. Don't hold that against me.
And you like psychedelic music as well, so this is the album for you, isn't it?
It really is the album for me, and that's partly why I've been so excited about it. And I don't know if you have a relationship with this type of music that is, through an adoration of any sorts, but for me, one of the reasons I started the site, and it's a little awkward to even talk about this, but I believe that everyone is uniquely created and we have the opportunity to uniquely express ourselves. And to hear these chants put in such a unique and beautiful context is such an artistic expression.
Oh,
It's all right. I have three kids. I know how it
my
goes.
daughter's coming in, hassling me to get her an album on iTunes. We'll do it in a bit, Ava, okay?
So yeah, for me, I have a very special relationship with this type of music, and the chants are some of my favorite types of liturgical expressions. So hearing it in this kind of very moody and different type of background is so interesting and kind of rejuvenating. And I think that the world needs to hear more of this type of music. And I'm not trying to be a religious zealot here or anything like that. It's just it's been such a big part of humanity for so long, and now it's kind of like swept under the rug in some respects. So thank you for making this. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Could you talk a little more about why you chose the pieces you did?
What the text?
Yeah, and why, like, were you drawn to certain ones? Did you have them in mind when you started?
I was initially just drawn to the words prayers of the Rosary. I just thought it had this sort of very mysterious, kind of potent energy to it, those words together, because a lot of it's about the Virgin Mary. It's obviously a very feminine thing. It's very suitable for medieval babes. The rose is a medieval feminine symbol. And I've always thought that, the sort of ceremony and tradition of Catholicism was so terribly grand and exciting and dramatic. And I thought it'd be great to draw on those sort of, those kind of, that side of it, to make an album that is in some places quite dark and menacing, and in other places quite uplifting, because obviously there's a dark side to it all, like hell and all that.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite good to represent it not just as being multifaceted, which I hope I did in this album.
Well, it's awesome. Charlie and Michael, could you guys talk a little about your experience with this music?
Charlie?
I've not had any sort of prior experience with this particular type of music before, say Catholic music, but I've always been fascinated by music that's not necessarily different musically, but kind of conceptually, like other forms of transcendentalism in music. I've always been fascinated by things like sort of like Sufi music or Indian classical music, which are completely different, but have sort of like a similar sort of transcendental
meditative quality, isn't it?
Yeah, and so and also like more modern things like spiritual jazz, and so I was able to. There are sort of elements of those in some of the the instrumental arrangements on the album. So I was kind of trying to approach it almost as if it was kind of like medieval Alice Coltrane.
I think you touched on something earlier about being into Catholicism and psychedelic music, and really I think like the religious experience and the psychedelic experience are sort of one of the same, that it's just a different language for approaching the same human experience. And I feel that we've sort of tried to bring those things together in a way that maybe hasn't been brought together certainly in recent years, but possibly not for 100 years or so.
Absolutely.
Yes.
For me, I have had experiences that I won't share here, but they were absolutely psychedelic experiences, and I call myself kind of an atheistic sympathizer, because without these experiences, I think I would have a really hard time hanging on to anything. But because I've had these experiences, and because they've been so impactful and clearly out of body, out of mind, everything, that whole experience, it's like I have this real duality inside of me, and I feel like this music really touched that part of me. And I have to be honest, I was sitting listening to it for the first time on my couch, and I just started tearing up and nearly crying, because I think for someone like me who feels that the world is not what people think it is, and there's a lot of mystery and beauty and a darkness and a light, the fact that this album kind of brings all of that together in such a beautifully performed and arranged way is, I think it's just such an incredible effort.
Thank you. I mean, I guess there's lots of, everyone sort of seeks to sort of connect with the universe in one way or another.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah, that's my experience.
Or religious experience, or through love or sex or whatever it is, just wanting to connect with something bigger than yourself. I'm not actually religious myself, but I'm fascinated with the different ways in which people achieve this sort of heightened state of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think often it can just boil down to the same kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my experience as well, as being like a non-religious person at all, but I'm still fascinated by like concepts of like transcendentalism, and having thought about it quite a lot for the past however long, I find that most of the time the only things that separate these things are it's almost more linguistic than it is anything else. We're talking about the same things, just using different language, and it's but on a conceptual level it's often the same.
Yeah, I think religion in a way provides a roadmap for the psychedelic experience, which is why a lot of people who don't have a religion end up going mad when they have these sort of cosmic experiences, because they don't have some sort of linguistic roadmap to sort of contextualize that experience.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of this type of music. Not that there's like this genre of music. I don't think something like this has been done before. But this album, I think it feeds that, because you don't need words. It's an experience. It's a feeling. And you guys really pulled off something incredible.
Thank you.
I wonder if, I always think about when I hear something that I love so much, like, did these people know that they were producing something so powerful at the time? And I'm just curious, did you have any sort of feeling or intuition about this when you were recording?
I think every artist sort of goes to a sort of journey when they're making something. To start with, you think, oh, this is great, and then inevitably you go through a period of doubting it all and thinking it's all rubbish, and then at the end of it you come up with something that you feel is an adequate representation of the song or what you had in your head in the first place.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster ride often.
Awesome.
But,
well,
yeah.
Let's listen to another track. This one is called Queen of Heaven. It's the second track on the album. And someone posted that they've already ordered 2 copies, Bruce Crichton. So thank you for doing that. And you'll see the Bandcamp link when I switch over to playing the music. You'll see the Bandcamp link at the bottom of the screen. So please go there to purchase this album. It's officially released this Friday. And are physical copies already in the mail, or what's the story, Catherine?
I've got one right here, actually, which I could maybe show more of later. But here it is. It's all lovely and shiny, with the sort of gold foil on it, and it's really beautiful. I'm really, really pleased with it. Mike had a lot of involvement in the artwork because I was so busy doing the music. I didn't have time to deal with that as well. Some amazing photography by Janice Issett as well. So it's a really great package. I mean, goes without saying, it would make a great Christmas present.
Yes, absolutely. Please order it for Christmas. Let's listen to Queen of Heaven, the second track on Prayers of the Rosary. Ah, it's refreshing. I'm curious. This is very free form. How did you? Was it performed, together at all, or were you multi-tracking? Like, what were you doing? How do you produce music that's so non-structured?
This is actually the only track where all of the vocals were recorded remotely. The lead vocal was by Esther D, who's used to be in the band, and I just a post of hers came up on Facebook at the beginning of lockdown saying, does anyone want me to do any vocals on stuff I've got at home recording set up? And I went, yes. And so she was one of the first people to contribute, and then various other singers got involved. And the way it was done, because it's not done to a click track, so instead of me conducting it in the room like I would normally do with something that's free form, they were just looking at the waveform of my guide vocal and using that as a kind of, alternative to me conducting. So it's like a visual map of when it starts, and it worked out really well. I mean, I had to sort of nudge it around a bit to get it really tight, but, I was really impressed by the people that recorded it and how because it's very difficult doing something like that when it's not.
I can't even imagine.
So, but it sounds. I think it sounds like we're all in the same room. So, I mean, I think these days you have to just be very creative about your creativity, and and actually, I think being forced into approach things in a different way can, glean quite good results, because you probably come out with a different result than would have done if everyone just got in the same room. So it's good to stay positive about these challenging times in that way, because things would happen that they wouldn't normally happen.
Well, necessity's the mother of invention, yeah. I suppose.
Exactly.
So
that's what I was looking for.
How did you end up? I know Charlie has played significantly on previous releases. What about Mike? What's your relationship with Mike, and how did you guys, collaborate on this record?
He's my boyfriend.
Oh, that Mike.
Yeah.
I know. I just knew him as Mike. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, it was a few days before the schools closed. We just made the decision to just go to Glastonbury and stay in his house, because it was much more, it was just basically paradise rather than being in a flat in Leighton.
Yeah.
So I feel very privileged that we were able to spend that time there, and he's, all over the album, lots of bagpipes going on that he makes himself, and I'll let you talk about all that, Mike. Maybe Mike.
Go for it, Mike.
What do you want me to talk about?
Oh, all the instruments you play, that sort of thing,
Well, yeah, it's mostly on the album. I suppose it's bagpipes and other wind instruments, and various field recordings I've made sort of local to me. Some that I've made, years before, and some that made specifically for the tracks involved. I mean, one example is we've got a recording of the Chalice Well, which is about 2 miles from where I'm sitting now, and is supposed to be the resting place of the Holy Grail. So that seems very appropriate for this kind of album. And yeah.
Are you? I'm sure that Katharine would not have recruited someone who played fewer than 20 instruments, knowing how she is with Charlie.
Charlie's a very, very impressive array of instruments, and there's actually some new instruments on this album that I hadn't recorded before that I absolutely love. It's this lyre. Is it a Chinese lyre?
So the new instrument that's on the album is very new. I bought it over the summer and had it sent from Singapore. It's a Chinese guzheng, which is a longboard zither. So it's the full size ones are about 6 feet long, which I don't really have space for, but I was able to find sort of like a half size one. So it's sort of a portable one. Same range. It's 21 strings. Each of which has its own bridge, and it's tuned pentatonically. But for the tune on the album, I sort of retuned it from sort of a major pentatonic into a dominant pentatonic, and you can sort of play on the right of the bridges, and you can bend the strings with your left hand on the other side of the bridges, so you can do all sorts of kind of like really nice kind of phrasing and so that made it on, and
as well. I mean, I think one of my favourite tracks is possibly the last one, Credo, because it's got so few elements. Obviously, it's got the choir, which is one of the songs that we managed to record in real life. There was only two: Pater Noster, which is the Lord's Prayer, and Credo, which we both had a small window of opportunity where I could get the choir together in a church in London. But this last track, Credo, it's got Mike playing the inside of a clock throughout, which is very ambient.
Actually, the clock's just here, in fact.
Yeah.
Here it is.
You're playing the clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. This clock. But I'll see if I can.
Are you manipulating the bells in it?
Well, yeah, on the recording, it's slightly more skillfully than that, but yeah.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't sure if you were just turning the minute hand over to the 12.
No. If you do that, it just gives you this kind of preset tune, and also you get loads and loads of clockwork noise, which is no good.
Yeah.
But if you get your hands inside, you can lift the hammers up and start playing the chimes.
If you're really good, if you're like a clock.
You're
practicing.
But this track Credo, it's just I really love the combination of elements, which is that you've got the actual live recorded choir singing playing song, you've got the clock, and then Charlie's playing I can't pronounce it, the Chinese
Guzheng.
The guzheng and the pipa, and it's just so few elements, but they just seem to really work magically together. And it's the last track on the album. It's about 9 minutes long or something, but that's my favourite one at the moment.
That's the one I referred to earlier as being the sort of like the medieval Alice Coltrane with all the cascadey harp strings. Yeah, that's what I was going for.
All right, well,
what's not to like?
Yeah, no kidding. Let's check out the first half of it, so people can hear what you're talking about.
I mean, to be honest, there's more Charlie at the end. That's when it really gets going with Charlie. But he's all over it, though.
All right, how about
just have to buy the album.
Yeah. The second half or the first half? Which is it, Charlie? What should we do?
Second half.
All right. Too bad, Charlie. You don't get a vote now.
It's fine.
All right. just gorgeous. And the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, those bells are so beautiful. But now all I can hear is Mike behind a clock. But that was some incredible clock playing, man. It absolutely fit. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really digging that one at the moment.
Yeah, can you talk a little about the artwork and maybe show off some of the packaging? Somebody was asking about the seven swords, and said, "Is there
Mary?"
They were asking, is there a tarot link with the seven swords? I didn't think so. I thought it was more of the swords of Mary, but
I'm not aware of that. It's Mater Dolorosa, and it's the seven sorrows of the Virgin Mary, and each sword represents a particularly sort of, potent sorrow of her life, which, as you can imagine, being the mother of Jesus, and
all that
is pretty intense.
Yeah.
And there's also, although these prayers of the Rosary aren't linked to those the seven sorrows of Mary, there is another set of Rosary prayers that are linked to each of these seven sorrows. And it's an anonymous Italian painting from the 16th century. And that's
beautiful.
All we know about it, really.
Catherine, can you walk us through the packaging and give people a sense of what they're buying?
Can you see? Is that?
Yeah, we can see it. If you hold it in front of the candles, that'll be better.
Is that good?
I think so. Yeah. Text.
Amazing. We managed to do some socially distanced photography.
Nice.
In lockdown, which is why there isn't a picture of us all together, because it wasn't sort of viable to do that. But I think we've done the best we could. Unfortunately, Anna had a job at the time and she couldn't be in the photographs, which is a real shame, but she'll be signing the CD, as will some other people that aren't in the book, like the original member, Ruth Galloway, and a male singer, Giles, who sings on the album. And so they're all going to be signed, and the last chance to get it signed, really, to get a signed one is Friday, the release date, because after that we'll be going around to everyone's houses and getting them to sign it and then posting them out. So.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you, for the notation, did you use the old Gregorian chant 4-line staves, or did you translate them, or how did you actually write it out?
Well, I wrote it myself. It's not arrangements; they're my own compositions.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were using like the written chants and putting.
No, no, I've written it all myself.
Amazing.
Just using Catholic prayer. So I did it in Sibelius, just with the normal 5 lines.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Really, I'm very surprised, because we sing a lot of Gregorian chants at my church, and you've really captured the different modes that they use for the chants.
Yeah. Well, I've got some experience. I've got some experience of singing Hildegard von Bingen, and one of the pieces on that I wrote quite a long time ago, called Hail Holy Queen, which was for a medieval song library, and the brief was do something like Hildegard von Bingen, and so I've sort of revived that one and wrote a whole load of other ones to go with it, kind of thing.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Someone wanted to know about the mix of the album, asking specifically about the reverb. Sasha Mullen says, what reverb plate is generally used for medieval Bæbes tracks? All the albums have such a distinctive space feel. Or is that a trade secret?
I use Lexicon plugins.
Lexicon plugins. You mix the album yourself?
No, Rob Towson, who I've been working with for over 10 years now, mixed it. Obviously I'm there and I've got a lot of input, but I think it's really good to hand it over at some point with someone that's got more objectivity and expertise in that area.
Excellent. Henry Lohman mentioned something that kind of struck a chord with me, that this is a very timeless album. I think it's something that won't sound dated. I think it's something that will you know what I mean? It'll always sound good. The album it's beautifully recorded.
Surely it already sounds dated. It's medieval.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I love using organic instruments, because it just doesn't, it pass the test of time, doesn't it? Like listening to some old Miranda Sex Garden albums and stuff, you can hear these kind of 90s sort of keyboard noises, and I was like, well, that would be so much better if it was actually played by a string quartet rather than a synthesized string sound, which it just dates so quickly, that kind of thing. I think sometimes in a good way. But I mean, listening to like old Dead Can Dance stuff, it's like, God, I wish that had been done with some live strings. But you know where you are with an organic instrument.
With the choice of instrumentation on the album, it's almost kind of placeless as well, because across the instruments there's like Chinese sounds, there's like Turkish like oud and saz, and there's like Greek bouzouki, and there's like Anglo-Saxon lyre and hammered dulcimer and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of timeless, but it's also slightly placeless as well. It's kind of quite sort of alien spectrum of kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
That's something I love about your contributions and your compositions, Charlie. They are, you incorporate so many different styles into what a Western ear can hear and say,
yeah,
that sounds foreign and familiar at the same time,
Yeah, it kind of made it a little bit onto this album as well, because I mentioned earlier about sort of necessity being the mother of invention. It was all of, apart from some extra recordings that were done afterwards, it was all done over a one weekend where me and Mike just kind of fit as many instruments as we could into his car and drove to Glastonbury, and then just spent a weekend just tracking just constantly. And it was like kind of the opposite experience of the last album, the Nursery Rhymes album, which was done over a period of 4 years with like loads of sessions and lots of arrangement and scrutiny. Whereas this one was like very spontaneous and sort of kind of done very quickly. So there's it's interesting kind of what comes out. So on the second track you played today, there's sort of kind of quite odd kind of like lyre stuff going on underneath, where there's kind of double track lyres kind of cycling along with each other. So it's almost like sort of gamelan lyre.
And harp.
And harp, yeah.
That's Gothic lap on that one as well, yeah.
And that as well. So they're kind of like cycling along, kind of bubbling away underneath. But it's the sort of thing that I would just kind of write on the spur of the moment, like underneath something like that, where it's almost kind of like cycling along sort of gamelan style. And it just comes out that way.
Neutral lyre bed. I mean,
neutral lyre bed.
This abbreviation.
NLB.
Yeah, because I'll be like, Charlie, this is an NLB job. It's something that can sit. That's often that can sit under something that's quite modal and just be kind of almost invisible.
And also the fact that it's all free, like it's not to click as well. It's kind of got this sort of temporal kind of freeness to it as well. It ends up sounding very organic because you have to kind of flow with it rather than relying on a click track. There's one or two with
like, 2 tracks on the album that are to a click track.
Two tracks which are like metric, but everything else has got a kind of pushing and pulling to it.
Did you and Mike record at the same time, like you were listening to the pieces and playing off of each other, or were you tracking separately?
No, we just concentrated on when Charlie was there. He was there for 2 days. So we're like, let's just get as much stuff down as we can of Charlie, because obviously me and Mike were there all the time.
I see.
So
Mike's also in the room, so we're kind of bouncing off ideas and that's another kind of big difference to the last album, where kind of Mike's a third person in the room, and we're kind of just kind of trying out and suggesting different things and different sounds or different approaches, and then it just kind of happens really kind of quickly and sort of spontaneously.
Yeah, and for people who are watching this with no previous context about the Mediæval Bæbes, their previous album that Charlie's mentioning is called A Pocket Full of Posies, and it is a psychedelic nursery rhyme album. It's absolutely fantastic. We did an interview with Katharine. We did have some copyright issues, I think, on the video, so I'm not sure if it's searchable or not.
I don't know what that's all about. It's AWAL did that, didn't they? But I mean, I don't know. So
We'll have to figure that out, but it was a
I haven't
great
read
interview.
from Mediæval yet, so you'll be all right for a while.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll see if we can get that resolved, but the interview is really great. Check it out. Pocketful of Posies on the same Bandcamp link. Absolutely fantastic music. Just as psychedelic, perhaps a bit trippier.
And they come in a bundle as well. You can get a bundle of both.
Yes, special offer. You can get the Prayers of the Rosary and Pocketful of Posies for £30.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
what are you waiting for?
Yeah, no kidding. So what is a track that you did record with the Click? So we can hear that.
Seeing as we're going chronologically through the album, well, with the exception of Credo, why don't we play track number 3, which is called Domine Lesu, which has got Charlie playing what's a Darawan, isn't it? The lyre.
Darawan, yeah.
Yeah.
Darawan being a giant Chinese bass guitar.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. and I think there's zither on it as well. I think there's those.
German zither, yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I'm playing violin, and Mike's playing bagpipes, and the what's the solo instrument again called, Mike?
What's the what instrument?
The wind instrument you play on this. The
Oh, is that the duduk? Yeah, duduk on this one, which is Armenian oboe.
Yeah.
Popularized by Peter Gabriel in many respects. It's a great instrument.
Controversially, yes.
Yes, controversially.
It's the lead vocal sung by Marie Findlay.
Excellent. All right, Domine Lesu. Here we go. I think that's my favorite piece on the whole album.
Is it? It's one of the more sort of songy ones rather than plain songy ones, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's the vocals. I'm not an articulate person when it comes to vocalists, but the the sliding notes.
There's sort of swoops in it, yeah.
Yeah. It's really beautiful, and the note choices are wonderful, and it's kind of like what I've heard a lot in Charlie's music, where it's that familiar and the unfamiliar. It scales you hear in non-Western music, typically with sort of a Western feel, and the instrumentation is fantastic. It's just gorgeous, and we're getting a lot of great positive comments on the YouTube chat, which is, I mean, people are generally supportive of a new release, but I think people are really loving this. So I think you're
right. That one happened, so it was so quick, that one. I knew that Charlie was coming, and so I thought I've got to get a new thing together for him, and I thought it'd be nice to do something to a click track, and I sort of got it all ready, and I'd originally written it not to a click track. I thought, no, this is going to work so much better if there's a regular sort of pulse to it. And then Charlie just turned up, and then it came together so quickly. I think then Charlie went to bed, and I stayed up all night like I usually do, and put an arrangement together, and then it just happened really naturally, and that's how the best things often come together, you know.
Mike, can you talk about some of your favorite elements on this record, and perhaps some challenges you might have faced recording on it?
Maybe I can't. I don't know. I mean, obviously, all Catherine's contributions are my favourite elements on the record. You know. Challenges. Well, actually, weirdly, most of the music I've recorded in the past has been not to a click, so I was very much in my comfort zone. So the two click track tracks were the more unusual to me, because I've never really done that before. It's more just this sort of long expanses of sound sort of washing over one another.
I think that
that's all I've got.
It was really good. It was really good for me, actually, to work with someone that didn't normally work to a click, because it's very freeing. And even though I do often write music without a click, when it's like an a cappella piece, which I would have to normally do in the room and while I'm conducting everyone, I did find it very liberating to not have to be doing things to a click, and that's definitely Mike's influence. And so I think we both kind of put each other in a different place, you know, with the click and the non-click thing whilst doing this album.
Mm-hmm. We did talk. Go ahead, Mike.
It was very exciting to finally find a place for this recording that I'd made years ago of the church bells in Avebury, which is
Hail Mary is the track.
Hail Mary. And
Yeah.
Do you know about Avebury at all?
No.
It's Europe's largest stone circle, which is it's about an hour from here.
Oh.
There's a village in the middle of it now. In the Middle Ages, it wasn't sort of respected as being this sacred space, and they carved it in four and built a village in the middle of it. And there's a church right next to it, and it was one of my favourite places in the country, and I was once there. And there was just this most mesmerising and fantastic church bell ringing going on. Beautiful timing, which you often don't get when you hear church bells because of the sort of latency of the ropes and that. So I don't know who the ringers were, but they were really on it. And then I later learned that the church had recently had a new set of bells put in, and there's considerably more bells than you'd hear normally in a village parish church. And the combination of this extended range of bells and these incredibly accomplished performers just lent this magic to what I was hearing, and I instantly recorded it. And
on a phone?
I recorded it on my phone, in fact.
Yeah.
And then when Catharine wrote this piece, I was like, oh, this is the place for this. This is perfect. I'm so pleased with how, I can't really take any credit for it other than like pressing the red button on the phone.
Well, let's close with that recording. But first, I have my last couple minutes of soapbox lecturing. I just want everyone to know that bands like this don't exist because of streaming royalties. They exist because of fans actually paying for music and supporting them. So thank you to everyone who on the chat who's already mentioned that they've purchased the album just during the stream. That's fantastic. Please spread the word. These kinds of projects, they don't happen for free, and we want to keep them alive. We want to keep them making music. So yes, please go to the Bandcamp site. I think this Friday is the first Friday of December, so all the royalties for everything you buy on Bandcamp, they do this on first Friday of the month during COVID, 100% of the royalties go to the artist. So Bandcamp doesn't take a cut on the first Friday of the month. So if you want to wait and buy the bundle or something like that, do it on Friday. And please,
the release date.
Yes, and Friday is the release date too. So yeah, just please support the music. Consider buying this album as a gift for someone. And thank you so much to everyone who's already purchased the album. It's awesome. And thank you, Charlie, Mike, and Catherine for giving us an hour of your time. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Right, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having us on the show.
All right, you're welcome. Let's take a listen to Hail Mary, and then I will end the stream.
Ah.